There is no going backwards of where we are. Remember, world, the world. I'm going to summarize here. A woman was expelled from a church. From church. There was Mother Mary. There was Jesus. There was Mary Magdalene in context of spreading the teaching of the time, teaching of organized approaches versus the chaos. And woman was expelled and her kids were punished. Aligns with the history of Macedonian monarchy. Aligns with artifacts of Macedonian monarchy, and aligns with amphitheaters. These are the alignments that are withheld with the entire history of 2 millenniums of Christian religion on our territories. There is Buddhism now on Eastern territories. There is something that has become called Buddhism, and Eastern territories are practicing that kind of belief system. These matters are not absolute, are not something we are being born with. The nature of our making, yes. The substance of our consciousness, or the fact that we have energetic aura of existence within invisible and not material, not physical body presence, which is our energetic aura, but also the mindfulness or the dimension of our mind, indicate that such matters would emerge, questions of belief system would emerge as a matter of our living. We have been living history, millenniums of disputing and arguing on these matters. But religion is not something absolute that we are being born with. It is something that it was and it is imposed upon us by a system that is very much administrative. It is very much matter of man-made protocol, and continues to suffocate our actual dimension and the way how we really should be relating to our consciousness and spirituality. I can't accept in 21st century, in the very fact also, from the very fact that also I have been born in socialism country, I cannot accept religion to be that much of a judger over my life or over life of my kids. Neither as a social being, doesn't matter being born in socialism or not, I would in 21st century accept that much of dogmatic approach in relating to my entire existence. In that context, returning to Mary Magdalene and these religious references is just speaking your language, or rather using here some kind of investigation to establish how that entire movement religious movement emerged, on what foundations, out of what, and on what parameters. Parameters of political philosophy that then simply died or has been completely suffocated by religion, with establishing of a religion as some kind of cap over our minds. As equally, when you go in churches, you get that kind of impression that something properly is sealing the entire area, which is our consciousness and spirituality. It feels as someone just sealed our minds. And I connect that very perfectly with the symbol of Masons with cut out pyramids. I would be going that far actually even to blame a religion for for producing something like that. I would excuse religion only in aspects where in previous times it would have been much harder to maintain order. Most of the people have been harshly uneducated and also very much antagonistic, very much violent. There was time of bloody wars and sufferings, and these churches emerged also as a center of education, as a center of shelter of how today would be described charities or things like that. Would have certain social dimension, and also have become a way of bringing certain order in the mind of human and behavior of human. And I sometimes and basically I highly appreciate the aspect of order, and basically all of these three functions of church are to be highly appreciated. However, I think that we have paid solid price of being manipulated about the entire functioning of that church in the society. There is plenty of downfalls in relation with religion, as for example interfering in birth and death certificates. We establishing today there is quite a fight among religions about taking over the upper consciousness, the higher developed human identities, some kind of soul situation here going on. Although I believe much more in DNA than in soul, there have been nothing less engaged in that field as well. It became basically fight for controlling the human as much as it was about helping out human. And I think we reach today a stage where things get or escalate in that following that line of behavior, escalate in rather wrong direction, and where the human became subject to hunting of different kind, much more organized, but nothing less. It is about hunting. It is about taking over another human and properties of another human, and religion become nothing else but a matter of conquesting various individuals. Especially, I'm going to talk about upper consciousness, upper souls, and it becomes, of course, highly associated to political grounds, and in substance become politically driven, as we have established that in recent times I mean, from ever it was established that religion is equally does have very strong political note, and that's very much very little, very hard to reconcile with the fact that they all connect to sky a similar way, and that they all claim sky as their dominion. But then we have such harsh political divisions and hunting over the historic subjects, or let's call that now historic dimensions. Now this looks to me as, not looks to me, but it is quite serious question, either from political aspect or from personal freedom aspect. I have started my work from personal aspect because it looks to me as it is hitting me stronger on personal level, and also it is targeting my kids exactly on similar way. It has become a march of hunting over our existence rather than matter of some kind of political issues. Where are in question mixed bloodlines, that becomes harsher to sustain on personal level rather than easier. Personal here for me is mother and kids, and the line with the society is with the rest of the people that continue to align over targeting the bloodline and hunting the bloodline. Within that context, it can be identified even hardcore of bloodline, which indicates that we talk about a real event. Although projected that real event is Israel, I recognize that real event is actually monarchy of Macedonia, which also exists within the protocol of mixed bloodline. That is going to explain why the entire region of Balkan continue to be highly occupied by headquarters in Belgrade, which is Yellow House. It's not White House. The headquarters of Belgrade is Yellow House. And the revolution at the moment in Serbia is very much on that line. I wouldn't call it yellow. I think we can identify it in much more specific terms. And it is Central European. Serbia is not yellow state. Serbia is white state. As I am speaking from positions of Macedonian Empire, there is strong yellow element there. I cannot be very harsh in advocate and in selecting here what side I would be defending. I'm just recognizing here how these matters become reflected on the territory in all of the historic times. I do not take some kind of personal stand here or making personal choice. I'm just implementing my philosophical, my professional approach here. I'm not making political choice statement. I'm just recognizing the situation. Fact is that there is considerable amount of yellow population, of course, in all of the Central Europe, and that would be sliding towards the Mediterranean, it's very logical to find yellow presences in Serbia and certainly in Macedonia. There will be here enormous question of human rights, because we talk about clash of two different bio presences. It's very hard when it is in question hunting and both sides are involved in hunting to proceed on who is correct. When both sides are involved in hunting of the kids of the other side, use them as some kind of disposable because they would not be considered as that much theirs. I blame both of the sides here, because from my personal perspective, both of the sides are involved in this kind of very selfish and disrespectful behavior versus mixed bloodlines. I'm bringing this case of mixed bloodlines not as a matter of choosing or making political choice, but as a matter of highlighting where are the problems today. My entire effort is also employed rather to reconcile and unite territories rather than to see them stupidly polarized, and that always end up being used by surrounding factors. And the central lands continue to be some kind of protocol of fishing and extraction and exploitation by surrounding regions, where we find a planet existing in the shape of donut, literally. You can't expect much from a planet in shape of donut. As I'm talking here, therefore, about the attitude of sacrifice of bloodline and sacrifice of identities, I'm going to find equally very inappropriate that the territories continue to play some kind of football with the historic artifacts. I'm not going to allow you to play 2 millenniums of responsibility on me when I am the one judging you collectively. I don't know how much religious that is, but certainly religion have nothing against it. To the point that religion has become completely useless when it comes to managing the humanity. I'm going to establish that they have lost the throne a long time ago. These matters accumulate to such extent, and the religion is sleeping all over it. Equally as monarchies, religions as well lost their control over the situation. They have become victims because they have become dysfunctional. That is where I'm going to proceed upon it as well. That is how I'm going to proceed upon it. Can you hear me well here, Artins? Religion has become, long time ago, totally dysfunctional. If religion cannot recognize what's happening here on this field, because they are that much polarized, and that goes as that far within the bloodlines of our making, where religions split on our making, on our mixed bloodlines, religion has become dysfunctional. If that ends up in hunting of kids, hunting of families, and bringing kids down, trading humans, religion has failed. Religion has failed. And look, the crawling creatures of tribunal societies around us, crawling as creatures, nothing changed there. Governments are not there to educate people. They're there to suck out from the people. So they can become the Bugatti. How you said Bugatti? They can become Bugatti. That is where Bugatti is. Stealing out of people. Using government as excuse to steal and become rich. To become Bugatti. Out of population. Out of general population. And out of people as myself. Instead that I have direct, straight pathway to the very top of political leadership. I have become a hunting item and the ground on which they become Bugatti themselves. I will be clarifying in the context of the above that therefore I can't give in the context of this kind of function neither that much crown to monarchies or political houses for that matter, because each of them have been found in sleepy mode. And because of that, my main question today was how much and how far I can actually save monarchy. And yes, the answer would be, well, exactly the same as to the religion. I found them completely in sleeping mode, completely dysfunctional, and nothing of defending their head reference. So my second question was, is it would it be the most correct answer, my most correct answer, monarchy again, just because I find myself in some kind of mode of reminiscence to it, or I'm getting too much personal and I'm losing my sense of objective judgment, which it would be rather the second, where I'm risking actually to reincarnate a protocol that would not be in position to inherit what I do here. When it comes to inheritance of what I do here, it is very dangerous to bring it in monarchical protocol, because they would claim to be, as they're claiming even now, to be actually the one that would have such rights. And I simply cannot allow that to happen. That is why monarchy will need to go as well. No, the governments have been proven themselves anything better, and the main reason why I was I ended up in monarchy protocol is because I basically needed to run away from governments, and the most natural escape turned to be monarchies. To the extent that they are completely incapable to act on this properly, I'm going to find them equally dysfunctional and dangerously and as equally dysfunctional choice. But it would be fair to say that running away from governments is certainly going to give me urge to create my own monarchy protocol, and to make the rest of the monarchies to be the beggars of me, not other way around. As I am the house of their promise to survival, running away from governments, I'm pushed into this kind of playground, and I will need to play it accordingly. So I'm going to clarify for today. For me, monarchy is nothing else but my own house, within some kind of historic terms, of course. That would be rather, I'm recognizing here history of amphitheaters. And I say upon my ancient drive, my house of monarchy being actually house of amphitheater. Let's be notice that. Let's be notified that accordingly. My monarchy protocol is house of amphitheater. That is where you find today universities. That is where I bring this monarchy protocol today. Where is the teaching? And you see, religion starts exactly on the same normative. I think I have won today enough ground to claim religion and monarchy to be returned to me. And I am playing my character Olympia because I can. Because I am. Today, happening by the protocol, in the protocol, and if there was enough logic in you to continue to drive the protocol religion or the protocol monarchy, well, then you can certainly have enough capacity to recognize where we arrived today, again, to the beginning itself of that entire saga of Western and Central, that is European protocol altogether, and European history altogether. Today you have returned to your beginning, Europeans. That is going to include both of the Americans, because they are both under enormous influence of European culture. 2 millenniums, in other words, of history of that region sails today with this work. As my backing, I'm going to hold all of the rest of the territories accordingly that are not within this vested interest, within this vast saga, but are going to say it rather as a dangerous shadow that was usurping them and endangering their own existence in longer period of time. I'm going to use them as my backing while confronting you, Europeans. What I'm saying here, of course, it is not that I'm not European, but that I'm topping up. I'm the top of the European protocol, not certainly its bottom. I'm walking here again with 2 of my kids. For me, my kids are not different cultural or religious subjects. Although I can see you're trying to make all sorts of maneuvers to save your 2 millenniums old wrong soul dancing. 2 of my kids are walking today with me. Don't you forget that, please. I'm talking here as a trinity, as a holy trinity. Mother, son, and daughter. Bugatti. If there is any Bugatti in that courtroom, I'm going to use it to my credits. This is dragging indefinitely. I don't know your ground games, but I know what is going to precede here. I have just explained. What precedes here is the Trinity mother, daughter, and son. Mother, son, and daughter. Accordingly, I'm not giving them equal rights here. I'm just taking them under protection of this work, because that is where they belong. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Your politics ends right there. I'm going to find everything that was happening in their lives as a matter of their education, to learn about the world in which they live. They're certainly rich in something that I don't have, and that is understanding this world on the ground. Therefore, speaking to Macedonian both of Americans, I'm expecting you to immediately grant to my kids status princesses of Macedonian Empire, and to me Olympia of Macedonian Empire. Europeans and to Americans, my verdict for today. In that context, half of Russia belongs to European continent, and to the extent that Russia admitted to Christian religion, Orthodox religion, they would be submitted to this request, or should I say rather, announcement. This is nothing about, I'm not talking to you as a witch, I'm talking to you as a protectorate and as a savior, to save you from your previous mistakes and previous lost orientation, and to great an extent I'm going to find you losing equally your history, because trading your political historic artifacts is going to undoubtedly end up in you losing your historic identity, and above all your sanity. So consider me please savior. This is not negative approach just because I have a rigid nature. The legal system by itself is rigid, and I have to introduce this work in that kind of format. I can play here Mother Mary sharing the blessings when we live in a world that responds to regulative in the best way, as the consciousness, the overall consciousness of the planetary population is not that much on higher level, on high levels. Let's be sincere about it. We reach the discussion, the level of discussion in this work where to insist too much on religion would be simply inappropriate and even suspicious to further crimes. So be very careful how you're going to choose to project your identity from now on, because I'm not sure that these choices can be today done without a consequence. I'm going to ask churches, therefore, to accept responsibility with me here, not with me, but to accept responsibility in regard of the entire matter, and that we need to start talking about reform. Speaking about God in terms of some kind of upper energy and upper formation of consciousness, or simply as a reference of higher or more absolute correctness, is what I found myself usually using it in most of the cases ironically, but certainly as a reference to some kind of upper correctness. But when people are using such references in more kind of religiously dedicated way rather than philosophical, then becomes more like a sect. Then matter of personal consciousness. If we recognize it as a matter of personal consciousness, then don't run it as a sect, please. Because you end up to be a sect rather than free person. If you want to be a free person, then behave as a free person, not as a sect. There are people out there in America that are at the moment very, very confused and very and would feel very endangered. And you should be very careful, especially today in America, where people have to lose a lot and become some kind of breaking point to the entire development of these 2 millenniums. You have to be very careful, especially in America. That America is today the real power, the real bomb, more than anyone else. Because enormous powers are crossing there. Enormous capitals, private possessions are crossing there. And when it comes to private possessions, people can be notorious. America is not a country where you can fly a revolution so easily on personal level. And if it is not your call to walk first, well, don't walk first. Pay attention to details, please. Democratic Party in America is not dead. They're restructuring. One would to expect that they are going to restructure. And Republicans would never be enough of a leadership, enough safe, if they can't understand that, and if cannot leave space for that, then would they be leading their people in correct direction? If they do not have capacity to understand the size of Democratic Party and the fact that they are not going to surrender exactly like that, like little puppies, that's not going to happen. these parties are not just a political headquarter. They're life-related events. It means there are people actually that exist in that America within certain protocol that is different than it is yours. And that they are very, very, very powerful. So where on earth you think where you go? Well, I'm asking Republicans today about to notice the size of their wings before they think they can start flying. Let aside the fact that they have not worked out even to work out what means Republican Party today. No one made that manifesto of the Republican Party today. Donald Trump is not making manifesto. He's doing projector of his personal dancing out there. He doesn't give a damn about the rest of Democratic Party. He's not playing teacher of of Republican Party. He's not teacher of Republican Party. No, he is a solo dancer. And if that is how someone is going to understand monarchy, I'm going to say, you have understood monarchy totally wrongly. Monarchy is to be about teaching, or monarchy that is not. And don't give me, please, some kind of 3 sentences that someone sitting out there in monarchy houses is going to spell for a day. I understand that you don't know what to do next. But trying to appropriate what today I'm demanding so strongly is going to be the last place where you should be hiding. Restrain rather than declare. Rather restrain. Rather build for yourself light distance for beginning. Well, I'm friendly advising you. Rather start practicing distancing from it rather than acquiring it. When you're not bringing it. When you're not that teacher in the amphitheater, don't get closer and closer to the position. Learn how to step away from it. Americans would be using the only thing they know how to do the best in all of this, and that is what they have been doing in this entire time, and that is to use the 2 balls, that is Balkan and Israel, to use them as their balls. That is how Americans are going to defend today their stacked position. Russians would be there to prevent that to go too far. That is where atomic war can happen. Can happen out of incapacity of USA to deal with inherited situation. Would happen out of that many people in America having lots to lose. So we can play therefore this fast, or we can play it slow. What do you think? What's wiser? I think it is wiser that we play this slow. Which means that I will need to protect my positions every single day on better terms. Which means that I, in return, will need to become every single day stronger and stronger and stronger. That is where we are today. Artians. It is including my 2 kids, of course, which are going to be defined by the house I grant to them. And as a house of earth. My 2 of my kids are entitled to it. Don't jump on their shoes. They're not yours. And in that regard, I'm going to assume that they would be surrounded with that level of protective field. So let's notice how we would be differing today, even if we claim similar protocol, which is therefore monarchy. Also, I declare today, as of today, I'm going to call it Olympia, Protocol Olympia. So I'm going to differentiate myself from monarchies altogether, while in the same time still making a reference to monarchy. Therefore, Protocol Olympia from now, rather than Protocol Monarchy. I recruit my 2 kids in that protocol, in that house, as naturally that is where they belong, as I am their mother. And they will be surrounded by planetary set of circles that are going to guarantee their safety and their integrity. The rest of you, whatever you say for another day, it can be held against you. So, play your days wisely, or I'm not going to say play, it's not going to belong in my vocabulary. I'm going to say live your days wisely. So here, by declaring Protocol Olympia and amphitheaters, I'm going to lose Britannia on that account, but it's going to be still present, Britannia and obviously Yellow House in Serbia out there, or on Balkan, with the bloodline itself, with the protocol of what constitutes Olympia itself, or who she was, or what building is that temple. Which of course you would have here, I'm bringing here the Celtic protocol. In Olympia, I'm bringing Celtic protocol. And then it goes to Alexander via his mother, because Celts have been at that time very strong in spiritual terms. Spiritually, they have been very strong order, spiritually. So also they're claiming their Alexander to be theirs. But that's happening just because they would be claiming first the mother. Olympia was Celtic, and then it is Alexander accordingly. It's very similar situation you have in my bloodline as we speak. As my grandmother from my father's side was completely Celtic, totally Celtic family, and her brother, very strong Celtic line, out of which emerges my father, out of which emerged I as the oldest daughter, out of which emerged the lineage of my son as the firstborn son. I'm not going to use that much of a, now is it going to be daughter or is it going to be son, to the extent that it is, I'm using the lineage here of this work. And then if I'm going to find that what is going to be next would be certainly appropriate, certainly would nothing be disadvantages if it is a son, because it is certainly about delivering some kind of stronghold about this entire matter. I'm going to find this kind of mixed approach, firstborn daughter and then firstborn son. I'm going to find very convenient for delivery of what we need to deliver, either myself or my son, accordingly. No, I can't play your Star Wars movie because you're obliged, Hollywood, as I'm arguing for quite some time, you're obliged to actually follow me, not me to follow you. And now Hollywood has been spoken to. Make your movies to reflect what's happening here, rather than to expect that I'm going to reflect what's going to happen in your buildings. Don't be ridiculous. Hollywood, so you have been spoken to. And if that means that we will need to speak to all of the sides of Israel on that particular matter, or someone more specifically than that, then we will, and we shall. After all, I'm working with all of the Britannia today as well. I found it easily mobile. And accordingly, I have been said so. You're not going to play Hollywood over me. Macedonians. I think you have understood the theater from too much on the entertainment side and completely ignored the fact that you are associated with the house of biggest philosophers of the times. Well, that's not going to sum us to Hollywood, for God's sake. Macedonians, so you have been told so. You have been spoken to. Macedonians, so you have been spoken to. So my team find Hollywood as due to be set in restraint order. My verdict for today. On the line, ancient Macedonia, Olymp, philosophy versus Hollywood. I hold higher positions. Hollywood, my verdict for today. Whatever I do is what you have to learn from me. Learn from me. I am the teacher today. If that's going to clarify further my position, I'm not promoting protocol agriculture. Americans. I am protocol philosophy, in case I have not clarified that enough. I have recognized importance of nature in our lives, but I am not agriculture protocol. Americans, how about you? Understanding you're returning to farming within the entire size of the Republican Party. And bear in this context that I am declaring therefore the working room, not the kingdom. There is plenty to be yet done. But what I want to clarify in the context of all today is that I am not awakening this work in agricultural terms, but in philosophical terms. This is a work of philosophy, not work of agriculture. And as we have plenty to work out yet on the top levels. So let's notice the top of the pyramid, as someone suggested in Britannia. It is time that we return the top of the pyramid on place, speaking in their local terms. If I have not said that enough clearly, the top of the pyramid is already on in last 15 years. You're not talking about future terms here, when it is a present term. It is a present time event. It's not future event. It's present event. The top of the pyramid is active and it's working. We talk planetary levels, not Britain levels as well. The only question is how far you in Britain can afford to notice it. And no, it's not space shuttle, it's top of the pyramid. Actually, of the planet Earth. So have you not noticed it yet? Britons and the rest. Let's clarify as of today. This is not work on the field of agriculture. It is work on the field of philosophy. And if I have said I'm working first, then it has to be of a notice to all of you. I work with this work first. And the field is philosophy, not agriculture. My verdict for today. There was another momentum in socialism that I would like to point out, or it should be pointed out, and that is the emerging protocol of self-management, samoupravljanja. It was especially urging to be developed in our Yugoslavian model of socialism. I'm not familiar how far it was. There was a speed of its adaptation on other socialism territories, but on Yugoslavian model, it was rushing very much, speedy, like a speedy train, and that was very much the model of self-management attached to entire protocol of socialism. I found that as too extreme and totally irrational, because it was empowering everyone in a company on same level. Either it's a cleaner, or it is coffee maker, or it is administration or secretary, and where the director himself was more like a puppet at the end, would end up as a puppetry than as a boss. I mean, rather than someone in control. Simply control was lost from the top, and it was very much dispersed among the general population, which end up rather to be too much overly relaxed, too much like you are on a folk festival, too much of undermining the fabric of the what this enterprise is all about, and that is obviously very much a certain production or service providing institution, compound, proper company, interface, subject, economic subject, business subject that was still would need to be measured by national and very well international economic standards. Now you find in our socialism that climate of self-management in the companies, where everyone down under the managing chair of director is actually doing whatever they want and going on in direction of ridiculing the director in the way how they're doing it to me now. Suggested event that I am confronting in entire size today, and that is, you might well call it upside down pyramid. That is why I continue to criticize tribunal societies, not because of their agricultural culture and because of the earlier times of their existence, of course, but because how they happen to reflect their presence within the modern times of where societies are profoundly economically defined and economically driven, and where the economic subject becomes very much measurement of professionalism and attention to what the enterprise is about, rather than folk festival and everyone making a wish list there on equal ground. Equality is not what you talk about in company and business environment. In socialism, that is exactly what happened. That is why it failed. It is fair to enclose this discussion in the previous ones, because it is obviously the final touch, should I say, that obviously is going to describe properly everything else that I said about it. I came in just sounds, and it happened all of the same pattern. Everyone down there was much more babbling in secret mode about something, and when I would come in the space, it was silence. Similarly, as I understand later on, has been treated at the top of the management as well. They basically took over the company and cut you out as a leading person. I don't know how much that comes within the what we saw in the movie Beautiful Girl, or what was that name, that movie with Richard Gere and his co-star, about buying businesses out. It is very easy to crack business in such a way when you start using the lowest scale of employees against the leadership. Any wise leadership would be changing the personnel. Any wise leadership would be therefore employing some kind of light level of espionage among the employees, and would be certainly immediately acting upon to protect its entitlement or headquarter of the company. Monitoring the one that are down under would always make sense if you are claiming the principal account. Let's not lose that from perspective. That is how it is when you are a parent. That is how it is when you are a homeowner. That is how it is when you are a business owner. That is how it is where you are state. I'm not going to say owner, although it might turn to be. We will need to talk about certain kind of authority rights, certain kind of entitlements, and by nothing less than expertise within the bloodline itself. Again, I don't want to mix in one in one presentation two mega subjects. I'm focusing now on on the expression very much present in our socialism, and that is self-management. And I'm pointing out that that was simply going too far, and it was the main reason for dismiss of that entire system. Let's leave the rest of the story for the next discussion, or it is of course the discussion that we are certainly on today as well, where I reached the House of Amphitheaters accordingly as entitlement protocol. And that is exactly what reminded me to it is the behavior of yesterday when I was posting something on Facebook, and I immediately now I'm getting response on via the commercial side, via the advertisement, and obviously managing my site obviously as well, jumping there on the field, topping me up as they have the higher right to that socialism. And it immediately reminded me of what I have noticed via the very short time of being privileged to work in company there. What behavior and what atmosphere I have noticed, how easy it was for the personnel, for the lower personnel that ranks under your professional build-up, to take over the territory and end up being very strong judgmental side, with very strong personalized or personal approach, basically appropriating the entire company, bringing very, very much personal touch to it. And I didn't like it. I'm a professionally built person, and I just didn't like any of it. I'm very much respectful on personal level. I'm very much a humanitarian. I'm very much about providing for people, respecting family and all of that. But when you see that someone steps over you, it becomes a question of personal integrity as well. And in that system, personal integrity was not measured by the professional build-up. It was measured by their collective right to violate anyone that is not going to be on their levels. Needless to say, we are talking about the lowest of the levels. It became black hole itself. It became self-sucking protocol. Of course, such system will never have any kind of prospect to evolve in this kind of international competition-driven world where results are always going to be measured by the results and by nothing else but results. That system is not results providing. That system is sharing the profit without thinking how they're going to earn it first. As a result, become adverse, become negative, became self-absorbing. And that is what I'm trying to argue all of this time. So I'm going to be very much thankful to you that yesterday you just helped me today to deliver this kind of insight and remind myself why socialism actually truly failed, and with it your Yugoslavia. Imagine if someone, and that is that White House of America, in very serious manner, grant you money and grant you all of the support that you make sense out of yourself, and you end up as some kind of tribunal idiots. Of course, at some point of time, are going to say, guys, I can't say this working for any of us. We need to sell it. That is how any investor is going to think. Then he is going to go out there and recover their investments. Now I try to buy for you certain space by bringing forward the genetic buildup, but let's not be too much blurred with what exactly means genetic buildup in the present times. I certainly have brought this discussion closer to the temples than to general population. And even then, last thing I would like to say is that you would be to continue to declare your governance by sharing your historic heritage houses. On that note, you will need to be therefore confronted and you will need to be judged, or therefore you are judged. You are to be judged. Technically. You are trading on your historic heritage houses. You're not declaring build-up of better nation. You are declaring your consumer predatory nature as a throne, and such throne we cannot accept under that ancient house. Now I'm talking about entire regional protocol as well, and how someone should understand that part of geography, or how someone is inclined to understand it. It is beyond you, beyond your declaration. It is how planet is perceiving that region. And then what they get in return. You appear as a fake formula, as a fake news to the own geographic charting that exists in some kind of international circles. Wherever you refer to you as ancient territories, as everyone when you say Greece and say Macedonia, they are all thinking about Alexander the Great. They're all thinking about Aristotle, about this kind of mega events. And then you're of course, you're not that stupid. You go out there and you cash out of that kind of aura, while in the same time you're downplaying it with every single decade, with every single century as it goes by. You continue to actually devalue it, and you continue to promote and grow out of it something else, and that then becomes a problem. When out of that history you end up cashing into some other direction and becomes anti-driver and brings the world in some kind of anti-world position. I was right to notice the presence of tribunal societies as conflicting with the historic, with how these territories continue to be perceived. And that our problem today is exactly in that very momentum. So I'm going to ask you to stop jumping on this train, as it is not in your rights to jump here as it is yours. Nothing here is yours. Nothing. Literally nothing. Accordingly, let's notice what are the main notions that are being played here with. First of all, the principal subject is resources and how we declare ownership of resources. And here it is where we need to notice a fine line where resources become actually person and become personal heritage protocol. When it becomes about human identity, not about actual minerals, actual resources as are of nature driven. You say people here tend to define nature on most broader scale and incorporate human in nature, which of course in much more broad scale of perception of events and things it can be said. And they're using here, they're basically using some kind of black hole, if I can say that, something like there is another expression like loophole, for example. Loophole in how we are going to define resources, where then we bring subject who is the owner of resources, and then we say nation or people living on the land. That's correct. But let's today highlight a bit, zoom a bit that entire event. That is what we understand under resources. So Earthians, that's your question for today. I am promoting position that resources, material resources, physical resources, object-driven resources belong to protocol nation, and it is very hard to justify when various people stand up as owners of these resources by default. You may buy resources, you might put price on them if nations are very poor, and that appear as a way for them to go ahead and make some decent living on the territories, as they're not capable to ignite development for themselves. So there is also practice of renting properties, this kind of, not properties, but resources for a certain period of time. So to give to the population time to stand up on its own foot, so they can start moving on their own from that point onwards, so on. But here, what is the critical momentum on which I, of course, have to harshly argue is, where is the fine line when what you call resources is actually person? As it is, in this case scenario, myself and my entire bloodline, for that matter as well. How nation has been found relating to the bloodline and to myself. That is where I bring this discussion today. That is what I argue on 15 years already. And it is so hard to move even one single step away from it. It is so hard to even recognize that people are using that black hole, that silver lining, or how you or loophole, with all very high level expressions, you will notice, to go around that entire situation and enlarge the base to which they would be perceived entitled within some kind of natural law of how things are on this earth. But let's notice that that natural law is breaking at the point where you end up talking about people. And then it becomes slavery. And you then become involved collectively in slavery. As where we are exactly today. And then you give me on plate immediately Africa, so you cover up on the fact that we are talking about your own population, your own historic heritage accounts. And Africa serves today for nothing else but to cover up that it is about your people on your own ground, in your own identity houses. And it is rather about, as similar as it was about the company example I just provided in close today. It is just about who is on the top, not about of what color, but about of what capacity of your own nation, of your own range of population. Because there is a profound range of population on your territories that is in the range, in genetic range in which I am. We talk profound percentage of population on these territories. It is within DNA range of my own range. Profound number. Profound, I take, well, certainly 40, 50%, if not even 60 to 70%. To 70%, I belong to that category of population. 70% matching going on here. We are not going to talk about Africa here anytime soon. With 70% matching of your population. We are talking about something else. We are talking about capacity of what I can do and what you can't. And then you wanting to be entitled to what I can do. And no, it's not going to do that much with Africa. It's going to do with the history of the region itself. Because that is one that can do what one can do in that region when it belongs to the region. And of course, in that context, I'm going to ask also what is the range of the region I'm talking about. Just this morning, I recognized that I'm actually talking about European heritage houses which cover up completely North and South America altogether. Here, the politics of Donald Trump looks like a kindergarten event. And I'm not joking. And I know very well that you would understand this accordingly as well. To this event, Donald Trump remains speechless as well. He's certainly going to notice the missing part of the pyramid now from his massive position. That is where we are exactly today. So what is the size of the region we are talking about that's going to be relative to this discussion? Audience, that's your second question for today. What's the range of the region I'm talking about? That is going to be covered with my discussion. What's the radius? Audience, what is the radius? Now, I think this is going to surface the discussion somewhere here. This is really the top of the pyramid when we are going to talk about human protocol. And I will therefore declare, since we are declaring on the planet human protocol, to the extent to which we declare human protocol, this is how this conversation somehow reach its top of the pyramid question. Next to that would walk actually very much me returning monarchy to protocol Olymp and bringing forward protocol Olymp as a head, reference to head, and reference to what means and what only can mean headquarter, or for that matter, monarch protocol, because we talk about ultimate political leadership, which is reference to intelligence. And then very often it's not going to be just one intelligent person, but we talk about classic level of how tribunal societies even managed in earlier times. I'm going to point out in earlier times would be managing, that is the society of wisest men and presumably women as well, would be finding its way to participate in managing the tribe based on wisdom, on intelligence, things like that. Now, in modern times, that is obviously rather consortium of top intelligences of the planet, which sometimes can be powerful lobby that would restrain the entrance of new members. And that is why there is a limited range of application of a society of men. They first of all very easily took out women from there, and then become what it became. So it's not simple formula to employ. Today it would be obviously governance, the closest we can talk about. Election, if it was really genuinely employed, really versus actual population that live in the nation, and really recognizing also the bloodlines recognizing who would be real contestants, who would be having most predispositions to such functions, and society should not be shooting themselves in the foot each time. Governance would be the best possible format, I would agree, if the system of election of governors is correct, and that is where we need to continue to fight for the inclusion of who would be actually playing the governors in the societies. One would say, right, there is nothing wrong about being a writer and writing books. Yes, unless you end up being hunted, and unless you end up being asked for this position of other pocket makers that end up using you as a artificial intelligence in the process and take away the humane side of you. So you need to enclose the certain element of power here as well, or you end up to be, as a writer, as random free intelligence, you end up to be hunted, fished, and easily disposable. So it will need to be something closer to monarchy, because it would be instituting identity when it is about authority rights. It would be reaching Excalibur here. Entitlement to protectorate. Entitlement not to end up to be fish called Wanda or Wanda, but to be actually the classic terms expression to be a ruler. And you step up with this level of analysis, you end up to be Mr. Peterson and the rest, to be a ruler. Mr. Peterson and the rest, this planet already does have a ruler, and it is in format of woman, Mr. Peterson of Canada. That symbol of Canada, Adam Live. Oh, you already found the Adam here, Mr. Peterson. You're playing way too much confusion for the amount of time given. Protocol human. Object of protocol human, at this point I'm going to assume, has been covered up. Has been discussed. When I come in New Zealand and find something that sounds more and more like a song of the berries, I have problem to identify, is it Hollywood making their latest studio performance of graphic design movies, or I'm talking about metaphysics. I have not been convinced that there would be that many questions on either of the fields to be clarified, as they have not been already clarified by the discussion I have been enclosing so far. Accordingly, Olymp is higher than Hollywood, and I would expect that this has been resolved physically on the ground as well, by the legal system itself, that I hope is going to happen sooner rather than later. It's going to regulate Hollywood when it comes to this top level of political performance. Metaphysics is something that's always going to be so personal, I'm going to find pointless to even talk about. If I find need or urge to talk about, I'm certainly going to enclose it. At this stage, I can't identify any ground on which I would be enclosing anything. If I find something of material value that I need to enclose, I would be enclosing it, because I'm charting the constitutional words today, as have reached the higher level with my discussion in that regard. So if I find that I need to enclose something else here, and I will be enclosing it in its own time in some suitable, when some suitable momentum arises that is going to provoke me to say something more about it. I believe in natural progression of things. So let's not push things more than how they're unrolling, unveiling themselves. If I'm going to find some kind of reptilian society there, which is, I think, very much under the surface of everything that I do here, or of the house of which I have been born. My father, for that matter, never talked to me about any of it. As far as I can notice, it was rather that he was driving opposing line to me. I remember one time when my mother told me his students doesn't like him because he is not saying too much. He was at some point of time providing some kind of lectures in some high school of technology. And I remember my mother told me that he is not fair. He is not explaining to these young people. He is not giving them enough information. And it felt that she is on the side of these young people. She was Macedonian. She was not half-Brit. She was not half Serb, half Macedonian. She was profoundly Macedonian, and she was hurting about Macedonia. She was not pro-Serb. She was pro-Macedonian. My mother was nothing of pro-Serb. My mother was pro-Macedonian. I can notice how Serbia today wants to appropriate my mother. I'm going to find very inappropriate. I'm going to find Serbia reaching for more than Serbia should be reaching. In such way, nations and cultures somehow lose their credibility, lose their integrity, lose their honorability. It's always more you go, higher you start walking, there will be more to lose, and you should be very careful not to reach for more than you can afford, so you can lose everything else in a package. Why you would be gambling with everything that you have accomplished so far together? Why on earth you would be gambling with it? Is the name of my mother even referring to Serbia at all, in any aspect of it? There is nothing about my entire mother identity that has to do anything with Serbia. So I'm going to ask you immediately to stop reaching that far about my mother, Serbia. My verdict for today: she is mega, which Serbia is not. She is soft, which Serbia is not. What kind of temple that would be when yours is not? That temple, yours is not, Serbia. My verdict for today. There was a line where I have to notice that I end up rather to be consumable for my father's breed, my father's house. I end up to be rather usable, or usability protocol, or asked to be used and misused rather than admitted. I have not been admitted. I have been used. So how far that metaphysics is going to work now for Serbia? I have to declare here what I have to declare. I have my own identity. And I'm going to be very, very precise that is different kind of temple. We are different temples, and there is no need to mix or get confused about the temples. And if Serbia today cannot open their mouth to talk about Temple of Maria, well, then so be it. They're still at the point of temples of their Karađorđević, or temple of their Nemanjić, which is very much recent history. I'm talking ancient history. It seems that like they don't have enough ancient history to pull out. They have Daria, yes, Daria, which is in reference of giving presents rather than some kind of authority or shining star. Giving something to someone doesn't mean that you are the one having it. What's to be given? If it is reference to presence, there's reference to some kind of rather complex situation that is nothing too much to do with actual identity. It cannot be an identity house because it doesn't refer to identity. It refers with what someone does. In that kind, even in that level, even Excalibur or Excalibur is not going to be good enough. And I will need to go directly to Highlander. Because we need reference that is going to be directly referring to actual direct identity. If Serbia cannot reach such ancient history, we have to notice that accordingly. I have not said to what side prevail my temple. Is it Serbia or Macedonia, or is it Palestine or Israel? Appears to be rather it is of mixed bloodline, and that is why it is the cross so much emerging in religion, because we talk about mixed breed. But here it will need to be noticed. That is why Jesus is the king, not his father. I'm going to now take out the name, just keep the cross, and therefore refer that is in reference to mixed bloodline. So, but what is the king is mixed bloodline. That is why I'm going to answer that metaphysical question, and you rest in peace about it. Everything further on is going to be matter of this kind of house I claim today. Although I certainly do not have my boots that much in the mud. But because this is constitution, what I'm writing about here, it will need to be in this kind of vocabulary, on this kind of table. All of that delivered accordingly. I certainly have, it has happened that I developed my entire discussion exactly on that bridge between Yugoslavia and Britannia. One would say it would have not been possible to happen in any other way, considering the fabric of Yugoslavia, considering the fabric of the entire history of that of Balkan. It would have been impossible to avoid England, especially because of the fact that I, from 1996, actually live in under British flag. Somehow it is within the Commonwealth Protocol. And as much as I immediately started to reflect rather on my Yugoslavian situation, should I say it, and then gradually to increasingly notice Britannia, literally increasingly notice Britannia, at some point it was wow factor. And then when I noticed recently America again looked like wow. And then as much as I need to cool down from that wow factor, I also, of course, cannot too much derive from where I brought this entire discussion, and that is exactly on the bridging of these main protagonists in my life, and accordingly suitably reflecting in what I was dealing with here. They certainly have solid place here, where I'm going to switch, and as I was switching gradually Yugoslavia with amphitheaters of philosophy, and I was saying Britannia very much. That is not as England but as Britannia. It became for me Britannia rather than England. Become rather Highlander than monarchy of England. Became much more about what we need to talk about today, of course, rather than to defend certain already present possessions. And I ultimately ended up to see it as a question of my entitlement, or entitlement to this kind of work rather. As what else I would question, of course, we would question what else civilizational development would amount for if not providing the latest stage for the latest music, for the latest discussion. Since times of Mozart onwards, it was like that. Civilization become the latest stage for the latest performers. In the times of Tesla was like that. And with this conversation continue to be like that. West is a stage for latest development, planetary development. And that is the only way how West can continue to maintain and keep their place in this world. I have argued many times. It is the investments that entire planet was doing in West that is going to today, that is making today West again to be that stage for latest music. So when someone is importing too much of immigration, that is not because they want to protect my positions, but because they want to protect their positions as the previous establishment. As my positions, I don't need physical presence of specific people about protecting my positions, because my positions are solidly tuning with the regions, although on metaphysical level are tuning with the actual population of the regions. Unless we are going to question here how far Britannia can be imperial and how far Britannia would be accepting to be a stage to this kind of performance, which is planetary level of discussion altogether. How much Britannia would see itself as being staged to something like this. Well, making Outlander was all about being a stage as well. I really don't know what to say to that. Let's say that if you want to be anything higher in terms of personal development, no one is going to be on your way, I would say, in that regard. I can't find what more I can say about all of that. You would not be suffocated to be whatever you want to develop into. I can give you that grant, but I can't accept the culture of shareholding to which you become accommodated. And if that's our conflicting line today, then it is conflicting line with the rest of the world as well. It is not especially I'm conflicting with Britannia on something. It's that basically I defend my case versus the planetary perception of the previous times. All of you would have been found in the previous times. We are trying to walk away from it. I think it's going to work to the extent that there is solid older percentage of population, solid percentage of older population in Britain. I'm very sure that this subject is going to be interesting or relevant to Britons as well. But no, my approach is people living on the land. And I would not be associated with oversized immigration. I would rather say it wrong and very hard to understand. I just don't know how to understand it. I really don't know why it develops like that. I think explained yesterday, yes, because the businesses are in need of cheap labor. And Western societies continue to perceive themselves as the most developed in industrial regard. That is what Donald Trump promotes. Donald Trump wants to return production on the West side. Well, that is going to go on head with exactly that, with cheap labor. It is absolutely impossible that Donald Trump can provide some kind of competition on international with the rest of the world, where today you have such mega protocols as it is production protocols, as it is India, China, Middle East. There is absolutely impossible, even Russia, absolutely impossible to compete South America. They're all labor intensive, rich in number of population territories. It is impossible that Donald Trump is going to compete on industrialization level with the rest of the world on economy level if he is not importing cheap labor. Now he is returning back home South Americans, but we can hear more about Muslims. As a matter of fact, he is rather fond of his wife. Needless to say, Elon Musk is also there, certainly providing the face value. It's not South American, but you can't say it's not Muslim related. Elon Musk. So, of course, it's going to reflect in England what is going to reflect. Elon Musk never asked what is his matrix, DNA matrix, or who is his father, should I say. Well, it's Iran, Elon Musk. Your father is not in Africa. Your father is in Iran. And that is how that works now for America. That's why in England you're going to find that. I mean, how otherwise you're going to bring that? I would like to hear, of course, how they're going to explain this returning to industrialization and then them competing with the rest of the world. Then they're competing, they end up to compete on robotization, actually, rather than on labor. You still need cleaners, physical assistants. You still need maintenance of your mega enterprises. You need maintenance. You need people that are going to attend the entire maintenance of these mega companies now. No matter how industrialized they're going, how technologically advanced they're going to be, there would be still considerable amount of maintenance involved there. There is a reason, physical reason, why they need these immigrants. Someone needs them. They're not there because they have nowhere to go. That's stupid explanation. They're there because someone wants them there. Your question is to establish who wants them there and why. But don't blame them. They're not to be blamed. That is not how that story is going to go. Someone needs them. Who needs them and why? Elon Musk. That's your question for today. In Britain. Right there in Britain. Who needs them and why? We might reach the metaphysical question as well. But that's going to be your rather than mine question. I can say my South Americans are being safely returned home, and they now would obviously be happy about it. Now, as I can understand now, South America become more rather under invasion rather than them invading. These are the mega processes that are going to gradually start evolving, obviously, in different kind of direction in times ahead, once people start understanding what they should be going after. Certainly is not much that I would like to sell here or that I would support any of these processes. In contrary, I would like to regulate them. But you can always, I believe, regulate something successfully only when you understand it first. You need first to understand it, then you can deal with it. Understand it first. It's not possible that these people, as hypnotized, are going nowhere else but exactly in Britain. I mean, to what climate, first of all? What kind of industry? What kind of jobs? They would rather go in Saudi Arabia, where they can actually really earn some money. What kind of money anyone can earn in England today, for God's sake? They're not going in England out of blue. They're going there because someone is instructing them to go there. Now let's hope all of that is going to work for the best. From a personal perspective, I would like to rather bridge with Spain than with Muslim world, to be honest. Yes, I really don't know what else I can say in regard of that entire matter. It's not what I would like, and it's not something that I would perceive as strengthening my positions. I think that that's something that would be weakening my positions. It is certainly going to strengthen positions of Princess Catherine of England, and I really don't know how far that's the correct direction in which Britain is going. If immigrants are from Africa, I really, it's not in line with how I see all of that. I think that is how Africa, the fact that Africa becomes some kind of player on the international field. I really don't know why Africans want to be in England specifically. Would it not be that England again needs them rather than they need England? I really don't know. It's too much walking on the ground. What I wanted to say here is it is true that I found support from Britannia about what I do here. And that is making me obligated somehow to return to that support. So my question is become ultimately strengthening Britain in this regard, and very much enclosing Britain in what I do here, accordingly with expectations that we continue finding common denominators, so that would make sense actually, or we continue to make sense. Now, I really don't know how it's going to continue to make sense if immigrants continue to straighten someone else in Britain on the monarchical stage, which is for altogether for me under the belt going on. That would be the expression. It's too low level of game field for me. As although I'm certainly going to find my kids seriously troubled by any of it, and certainly I will need to pay obviously more attention to that particular matter, and that would be how exactly and precisely I'm going to find Britain enclosed in what I do here, and what would be my expectations. Well, my expectations initially would be, I think that's kind of straightforward, that I claim that wing of the empire for my work. If I cannot get that, Britannia is not going to be for me that much important. I'm certainly going to find that having certain weight on its own ground, as we are talking about Constitution of Earth, promoting local population and their tribe, supporting them, all of that certainly. But I would not find specifically some kind of critical interest, or that I would be every single day mentioning the name of that country or being that much discussing it, if it is not to do something with from where I'm going to deliver this work. We continue to work here between Olymp and between Britannia. In Olymp, I have as downfall all of these tribunals, which is looks in weights on its own weight, lacking of that kind of culture as well, that will understand or accommodate easily to what I'm talking about. In Britain, I can find that instantly, but what I'm going to confront there is much more local presence, trying to take the cross on their side, as it was to the present days, very much everything then going in direction of being everything topped up by Western protocol, and we end up in some kind of lizardian dominance, and human become loser. So I think I have more to lose in Britain, summa summarum here, than on our territories. On our territories, at least, I'm going to stay on human subjects. In Britannia, I need to fight for human. And that's to me harder. It is actually harder for me. And also have kids on stage. It's harder. I'm going to leave it there. Let's reflect on this burden accordingly. It was very similar dilemma as I was confronted before deciding on going together on holiday with kids. Is it my presence going to be a facilitation, or it's going to be additional burden? That's going to continue to be question. I'm going to have, when it is in question, Britain altogether. Is it my presence there going to be facilitation, or is it going to be additional burden? And for everyone else, ultimately. For my kids, it is easier to answer that. And if you want to tell me that I already have situation where I need to fight for human in Britain as well, then I'm going to find that as a good news, actually. And it's certainly going to continue to make Britain accordingly place that I would eventually even need to go and play a savior for humans living there. And as immigrants of some kind of reptilian descent continue to go there, obviously there will be urge that we save Britannia as well here in all of that situation, from some kind of human perspective. Accordingly, we would need to invite more humans in Britannia, and maybe Germany will be helpful in that direction. playing Germany would make more sense in that direction. And if Germany is willing to go there as well, we might find ourselves Europeans well motivated to return to Britain and declare Britain European again. As much as I have been living in the house, want to say, I would to ask even how physical this entire situation is, because I haven't seen it as a physical situation. I have seen it as within the protocol human, that we have different kind of mutations rather, and that human actually manifests itself as within different kind of human format. Like human itself has been split to different kinds of human in accordance with some kind of animal alignment. As someone is playing here jungle upon the protocol human. And that is what I would rather argue is happening here. Because otherwise we would need to speak about German population, for example, and their alignment with Goody, or what it is reference to swine, or to piglets. Let's be a bit more artistic. To piglets. And I'm not sure that that is where this discussion should go. I don't believe in reptilians. I believe in genetic mutation of human. Because humans have been living under the ground in the previous times. And some of humans went so far under the ground that they found some kind of different world under the ground. I believe that we talk about mutation here. And I believe that we should stop such processes rather than increase them. Humans should not be subject to making wonders. Humans should be engaged in problem-solving activities when it is in question this realm, not making some kind of theatrical stage performances and attracting attention, collecting money via it. I would always disagree with such a way of humans earning for themselves. Staging, making stages. And I'm afraid even my work today ended to be staged. And even amphitheater, despite the fact that I'm calling it amphitheater, end up to be very much theatrical protocol. And that is where human dehumanizes itself as an overall protocol and continue to dehumanize itself by himself, by themselves. I think even if it is existing like that, it is a mutation problem and it will need to be solved accordingly. I don't think that we can talk about reptilian population. So we need even political parties now to build on it. It will not make any sense. We talk rather about cultures and the way how I recognize them, very much cultures. They have different identities. They might be connected even to some kind of genetic mutation, which it is actually fact. They're different because they're associated to different genetic mutations and have happened today and exist as different cultures. That's something we have inherited. That's something we need to deal with. And we should not make it worse. Now, we should not make it worse, but by stopping any process of misusing each other and degrading each other and degenerating each other. Because in substance, it is all protocol human. Instead, we should continue to build on protocol human, to improve our entire living here, to improve cooperation, and what is really going to be attention to should be attention to our engagement, and that is, well, I wouldn't call it exactly only problem solving. I would call it living in the times in the best possible way. In your time is about sensing what is the latest issues and dealing with the latest issues. That is how I'm going to find living in the time, or living in your own time. And that's why I'm always going to find much more important that you notice the present state of affairs, rather than to waste that much time of reading of the previous state of affairs and then be not enough informed about present state of affairs. If you read only as additional to noticing present state of affairs, that would be making sense. But to use past as a standard to which you are going to bring or drive present, I will never find that appropriate. Yet that is exactly what's happening either in America, either in England. People find themselves living in certain time period, lock themselves in that time period, and then they expect the entire planet to navigate via their mental construct. In America, Republicans are still living in conditions of civil war, and when they win election, they bring time. You're like in time traveling there. They catapult themselves in the past rather than to reflect on the present. And that's not how we should be living our times. That is not how human should live its times. Or I pull out monarchy, they're immediately catapulting themselves into times, the traveling in the times, rather than doing exactly opposite. Being into the time and noticing the time and noticing this conversation and noticing the issues we have to deal with today, where we have stopped in last century, and you can't just erase it with eraser. Those vast territories are locked in that kind of situation today. They expect our answers. They expect my answers. And I burden them. I'm wasting too much time with your history. Just for the price of the working room. Well, they're waiting for my answers. That is where we are today. That is how it means to live your times. However, I have watching the news right now. I have to clarify that pointing out that I found my father within that kind of setting. It is to be reminded that he was taking education in Switzerland, mostly in Switzerland, and that he actually has been found on position. I have recognized him on position of James Bond, working for Protocol M, and also on position of Santa Claus, bringing the presents. And if I now highlight on the fact that we have Yellow House topping up Yugoslavia, and White House underlining Britannia via England and via USA, although not that much clarified, where yet has not been that much clarified that when it is in question Britannia, that is England, and USA, we would be speaking about White House, therefore. I would, in that respect, suggest that each of these, as I have mentioned already, each of these older societies Yellow would be a reference to Celtic. These are old tribunal society. White reference to green protocol, which is very much Muslim related today, but also Africa related. And of course, we have green nature in Europe as well, where is the forest protocol. It's very much green. These are all very much protocols that can tribunal protocols that can be found on tribunal positions, and very much therefore a warrior level of presence, very much employing some kind of predatory techniques. And obviously the history of Britain is already would already know the subject very well, and certainly on our territories as well would exist within some such kind of certain conflicting lines on exactly what we would recognize white and black on our territories, or what would be technically yellow and green, or green and blue. It's very hard here to identify where blue, you can find blue on both sides, but on our territories appear to be very much about dealing with the yellow house, as much as in America would become about dealing with White House. Now, these are both can be extreme positions, and today we need to work on reducing that extremism. That is what I wanted to say. It is very hard to identify a winner in this kind of situation. Today, we have not gathered to talk about winners. We are here to talk about dealing with the previous times and amending wherever we find extreme presence. So let's keep that on mind, please.